MAGA is embracing American imperialism. It's a notable shift for a political movement organized around a foreign policy of non intervention. But with President Trump showing a willingness to use the military to achieve his aims across the globe, many in Trump's base are falling in line. Here to discuss, Emily Brooks. She is the author of The Movement, a newsletter looking at the influences and debates on the right in Washington. Hey, Emily. So, is the reason the MAGA base is staying with Trump because so far Trump's muscular foreign policy has been limited to airstrikes and special operations? So far, no boots on the ground. There have been no casualties. And so far, the costs have been rather limited.
That is absolutely one reason. You know, the whole anti-interventionist sentiment really became a big force after the disasters that were the Afghanistan and Iraq invasions, the Afghanistan withdrawal, and these interventions and attempted regime change and building of a country that just didn't really go well and took years and years with no clear end in sight. And so a lot of the Republican base was very scarred by that and really resistant to any kind of foreign intervention at all based on that experience. But the way that President Trump has approached foreign intervention has been, as you said, pretty limited, with strikes on Iran. When he went into Venezuela, he got Maduro out without like a big, huge taking over the country and putting American boots on the ground for an extended period of time. So it has been sort of like a new way that Americans have been seeing this foreign intervention. And then there's also the difference between heading into foreign entanglements in the Middle East that has a very different culture from the United States than going into South America, which is in our Western Hemisphere. There's been a lot of talk about the Western Hemisphere. This is our hemisphere, a new kind of manifest destiny type sentiment bubbling up. And I think that is why there is some of that change as well.
What happens if that changes? If Iran crosses a red line, if the regime in Venezuela doesn't comply with the administration's wishes, is there a risk that Trump could go too far, or will MAGA follow Trump wherever he goes?
Well, in a certain sense, like, of course, MAGA is Trump in a sense. So I think there's going to be a certain segment of people that follow him no matter what. But there is a lot of hesitation from some people about how, worried about how this could go and are kind of waiting to see what happens, or hoping that Trump doesn't do something like get into a big foreign entanglement in Iran. There has been a lot of concern about that in particular. So yes, certainly a risk. And there's also a lot of people who are worried that all of the focus on these foreign affairs is going to take away focus on what's happening domestically, and that if President Trump doesn't ensure that he is fixing domestic problems, making people think that the administration is addressing things like cost of living, affordability, these issues that have been really hammering Republicans heading into this midterm election, then it will be detrimental for them going forward. And so that is the counter argument there.
You mentioned there are some figures in the MAGA movement taking kind of a wait and see approach. Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, individuals with really loud microphones among the MAGA base. What are they saying about the president's foreign policy?
Well, they're saying, well, it looks like we're in a new American empire, imperialist phase. The president and the administration are being pretty open and explicit about not having, some alternative rationales for why they're doing what they're doing, but really saying, yeah, we want to go and have this be our hemisphere and take the Venezuelan oil back, and being a lot more clear and honest with their motivations than maybe some would expect. But there's a lot of hesitation about that as well. Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson did a podcast together, and they were both saying, I don't really like the idea of the empire. Megyn Kelly was saying, I like the idea of the American founding and George Washington and the rebel republic that went against an empire, the British Empire. And so that is a central question about what is at the center of the Republican Party, of the conservative movement. Is it more of a republic, individualistic focusing on ourselves, or is it an embrace of a very big, strong, not only national defense, but national intervention and presence on the international stage that is unafraid to do things like go into Venezuela if they think that it's going to benefit the United States? And I think that's something that is up for debate right now.
Meanwhile, President Trump is proposing a massive increase in defense spending, calling for a $1.5 trillion Pentagon budget. How are congressional Republicans reacting to that?
Well, that $1.5 trillion is about a 50% increase from the Pentagon budget. And that was already, getting higher and higher as it does basically every year. So that is a really big jump. It is a very big portion of federal spending. And the reaction from Republicans, particularly some of the Republicans that were open to the idea of Doge and slashing government spending and going in and getting rid of waste and abuse, some of those Republicans thought, hey, let's do that at the Pentagon as well. But this is really the opposite sentiment of that. So Republicans are so far publicly kind of taking a wait and see approach, particularly the fiscal hawks are saying, well, I support a strong national defense and President Trump, but we need to wait and see what exactly he wants this for. And we need to wait and see how it's going to get paid for. That is another issue that is going to be at the center of whether Congress can deliver anything close to that or even any meaningful increase, is how is that increase in Pentagon spending going to be paid for? Because the fiscal hawks in the House Republican Conference in particular have a very big influence in making sure that any new spending is offset by spending cuts elsewhere, or it's like paid for by other revenues. And they're not really counting on those tariff revenues that President Trump pointed to as a means of paying for this increase in defense spending, particularly as we're waiting for a Supreme Court case that might wipe away the tariffs. So a lot of open questions there, and we'll see how that goes forward if the White House actually does put out a request for a $1 trillion budget increase, or if there's things that Republicans can do, like they did in a bill last year where they just inject some money into the Defense Department to pay for something specific, and if that will appease Trump.
All right, a story we will continue to follow. Always great having your insight, Emily. And you two at home can get Emily's reporting right in your inbox. Head over to thehill.com, click on newsletters, and get the movement sent right to your email inbox. Emily Brooks, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.